violent anti-American riots in oil-rich regions of the Middle East, of northern Africa, fueling fears gas prices could spike even higher in the U.S. They're already at record highs for this time of the year. So just how bad could this get for drivers and for our economy? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Buttner. This is Bulls and Bears. And here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Tobin Smith, Jonas Max Ferris, along with Todd Schoenberger and Steve Murphy. Welcome to everybody. Okay, Todd, we saw gas prices jump during the Arab Spring last year. How bad is this going to get now?
It's going to get horrible right now, Brenda, and I'll tell you why. First of all, like you said at the top, we're already at a record high for this time of the year. Then you start talking about the violence that's taking place in Libya, also some other oil-based countries right now, and you have to only assume that this is going to spread. This is going to continue to move higher, and this is something the U.S. economy cannot afford right now because you're looking at higher prices at the pump, which means less money to go out and spend.
Well, Steve, we are seeing that supply could drive this higher, but demand might bring it down. The economy's in trouble around the world.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, supply has not been disrupted. It's not likely to be disrupted. And the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia especially, the Emirates, are pumping oil like crazy because they want us to stand up to Iran. Secondly, demand goes down in the fall. It always does. Gas prices are a little bit high for this exact point in the year, but we know what the trend line is, and it's going to go down in the fall. This is not the biggest threat to our economy. It is the softening demand and the downturn in Europe and the emerging economies.
Oh, okay. Toby, do you agree?
Well, I do on 2 points. One is, obviously, we know from 6 months ago that the cure for high gasoline prices or oil prices is high oil prices. We're on this part where the fundamentals have separated from fear. There is no question there's a higher fear premium. But I sort of ask Americans and people around the world to look at this, with the context of don't let these guys scare you. I mean, yes, it's fearful. This film we're seeing is fearful. But the fact is that, A, we are in a slower economy. We are using about 6.5% less oil and gasoline this time this year than we did 2 years ago. And I wouldn't change my behavior, and I wouldn't worry and fret about our economy falling off the cliff because, this is a news cycle, and these guys are going to be, out of bombs and bullets here in about the next 4 or 5 days.
But Gary B., this erupted in 2 days. There's no telling how long it could go.
Exactly, Brenda. Look, there's two issues. Toby pointed out that gas prices are primarily, for the short term, driven by emotions. That's the futures. That's what you see. You saw during the Arab Spring, gas prices rose almost 30%. But the other point is the supply and demand, and as Steve points out, it's not disrupted right now in the Emirates and Saudi Arabia. But here's the problem. You remember back to the beginning of the financial crisis, I know I, for one, thought, it'll just be limited to just a few banks. And I'm sure it steamrolled until it hit the entire financial sector. That's the concern here. That's what I think Todd is alluding to. Sure, if it's just contained to the Yemens of the world, yes, that won't be an impact on the supply and demand. If this spreads, and this is the kind of viral thing that could spread, then we will have serious problems.
Okay, Jonas, that really is the question. What if this spreads?
Well, most of the world's really gettable reserves are in or around people that do not take much of a reason to get into a huge anti-America craze. I mean, it always could happen. It's always been like that. It's probably getting worse. But the bottom line is that these countries have no real economies but selling oil. And they want to get that oil in the market. And these countries are largely run by kingdoms and dictators because that's the best way to get the oil out of the country. People like that who don't like Americans. And they will shoot people who try to blow up oil infrastructure and throw them in jails and prisons and all the crazy stuff that Saddam used to do and everybody else. So unless the governments are overthrown, I don't see a risk of major oil infrastructure not hitting the market, essentially. But that is a possibility.
You could not be more right. And let's not forget that in many of these countries, the oil numbers are not hitting the point. We're not near the point. We have excess oil. I mean, we forgot we have 300 days of excess oil in storage. I just think we're jumping a gun here, guys.
I don't know. Are we jumping the gun or are they pulling that trigger, Todd?
Hey, let me tell you something. You guys are so naive to think this is just a couple of days of this unrest. This is going to continue. Jonas talks about governments being overthrown. They have been overthrown, guys. And look, you still have the democracy issues that are not taking place there. So here you talk about oil-rich countries. How are they going to get it out to the marketplace? Look, I got to tell you something. In a twisted kind of way, this is kind of an enviable business model. You have these oil-rich countries, and they start doing all this unrest and the tension. It raises prices of oil going higher, and that increases their royalty revenue for those countries. Look, I can't see this thing stopping anytime soon. The unrest is just going to carry over.
Toby, go ahead.
Well, Todd, I don't know where you get your crystal ball here. I mean, we're making a judgment here on some lunatic fringe. If you look at the film, I haven't seen anybody over the age of 25 in these
I'm sorry,
films.
People have been murdered and assassinated.
I understand that. That's what I would call lunatic fringe. And we have Jonas makes the best point of all. This is letting off steam. This is some ideology craziness. But the going after the oil, I guarantee you would see a hail of bullets like you haven't seen since D-Day.
It's important to note that these people are against America at this point. They go to embassy. Now, we were long ago kicked out of these countries officially from oil. Like, there's no Exxon, plant. Even though we work with these countries, the bottom line is the government's confiscated all the oil production in Iran, et cetera. So these people would have to turn against their own governments to go after that oil infrastructure. It's not like they can go blow up the Exxon refinery in Iran. It was taken over already, and that's the bottom line. So it has to get a lot worse and turn away from America towards the governments.
Jonas, it starts small. Tunisia, it started small, and then you start thinking about other big countries. Iran is a big threat right now, and if this carries over with Syria, Israel, Iran, can you imagine what gas prices are going to be at that point? They'll be double where they are right now.
Gary B.?
Well, Toby talked about a crystal ball, but I don't think the crystal ball is any clearer on the side of what Jonas and Toby are saying. Oh, well, this is just a small thing. It's last a couple days. Right now we have flare-ups in the Middle East. So you got to say, wow, could this continue? Well, we got some flare-ups now. Could this continue? I would say the odds are that it is going to continue rather than just blow over.
But Gary,
yes, I understand that, but you have to take the events as they are now and saying, is this going to die off? Well, maybe not. That's all I'm saying. Could it continue? Yes, and if it does continue, we've seen the spike in the volatility in the oil futures right now. That keeps going up. Gas prices are going to go up.
Well, last time we had this type of, not the Arab Spring, but let's go back farther other history. We were actually importing, in the United States, 16, 17 million barrels of oil. We're down to 9 million barrels. We now actually export petroleum and diesel fuel and other things to other countries. We're not in the same position, and I don't think it's analogous to take this and extrapolate this over 18 months of the Arab Spring.
All I'm saying is that you have to, you just can't say the threat level is zero. It has to be something. That's why we've seen the spike in the last few days, this past week, in oil prices.
And Todd, it's not necessarily what the protesters want is to give the government more revenue.
You got that right. I don't think they're that smart. But look, the anti-American sentiment is right there. They hate us. They've always hated us, and this is just going to continue moving forward. Look, the unrest is there. Gas prices are going through the roof as it is, guys. We're already at that record high level right now. You can talk about supply and demand concerns all you want, but bottom line is, once you start cutting off that supply, guys, eventually those numbers crisscross. Gas prices are moving higher.
Okay, that's got to be the last word. Thanks so much for everybody.